The stadium lights flickered as the massive Vraxian mothership blocked out the setting sun, its obsidian-like hull casting a shadow over Yankee Stadium that stretched for miles. 70,000 people sat in stunned silence, the roar of the baseball game replaced by an eerie, technological humming that seemed to vibrate through their bones. Colonel Jack Morrison stood at home plate, his crisp military dress uniform a stark contrast to the baseball players frozen mid-motion around him. The stadium's jumbo screens displayed the alien fleet, hundreds of ships arranged in a perfect geometric formation that defied human understanding of space combat. Each vessel looked like a razor-sharp obsidian shard, capable of slicing through planetary defenses with surgical precision. A holographic transmission materialized directly above home plate. The Vraxian High Commander appeared, a creature of crystalline exoskeleton and multiple articulated limbs, its voice a combination of metallic clicks and translated frequencies. Inhabitants of Earth, the transmission began. Your civilization has been evaluated. Surrender is your only logical option. We will assume control of your planetary resources, repurpose your infrastructure, and integrate your population into our collective workforce. Resistance is mathematically impossible. Morrison didn't flinch. His right hand, scarred from decades of military service, rested casually on his hip near a quantum communicator that looked like nothing more than an advanced smartphone. Behind him, the baseball teams remained motionless, the center fielder suspended mid-leap, the batter's bat frozen inches from a pitch that would never complete its arc. The stadium's security teams had been quietly evacuated moments before, replaced by a special operations unit disguised as stadium personnel. Tactical teams were already in position, their advanced adaptive camouflage making them invisible to both human and alien scanning technologies. Mathematically impossible, Morrison repeated, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. That's where you're wrong. The Vraxian transmission continued, listing Earth's projected casualties, the efficiency of their invasion, the futility of resistance. Detailed holographic projections showed cities falling, military bases neutralized, communication networks crushed within hours of the initial assault. What the Vraxians didn't know was that every single projection had been deliberately fed to them through carefully constructed intelligence channels. Each piece of information was a breadcrumb, a carefully placed datum designed to create a specific narrative of human weakness. Inside the stadium's underground control center, a team of the world's best strategists, scientists, and military planners watched the transmission. Dr. Amanda Hayes, lead scientist of Project Prometheus, tracked the Vraxian communication patterns, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that mapped quantum entanglement signatures and potential weapon frequencies. They're broadcasting on a predictable spectrum, she muttered to General Diana Blackwood. Just like we anticipated. Blackwood nodded, her cybernetic eye, a replacement from wounds sustained in the Martian conflicts, scanning multiple data streams simultaneously. Morrison's about to give them exactly what they want to see. Back on the field, Colonel Morrison raised the quantum communicator. The entire world watched, billions of screens tuned to this moment of potential extinction or salvation. You may choose the battlefield and conditions of our conflict, he said clearly. We will meet you there. The words seemed simple, almost naive. The Vraxian commander's crystalline form actually produced what could only be described as a laugh, a series of sharp, cutting sounds that translated to pure derision. They had no idea that those 11 words were the first move in a chess game humanity had been preparing to play for decades. Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, the air crackled with a nervous energy that bordered on electric anticipation. Dr. Amanda Hayes moved between holographic displays, her fingers leaving trails of light as she manipulated complex data streams. The underground complex sprawled across multiple levels, a testament to humanity's decades-long preparation for an event most had hoped would never come. Activate Project Prometheus, secondary protocols, she commanded, her voice cutting through the low hum of quantum processors and advanced cooling systems. A nearby technician, Lieutenant Carlos Ramirez, pulled up a classified file dating back to 2037, the year of the first confirmed alien artifact recovery in the Nevada desert. The image showed a fragmented piece of technology that looked more like a sculpture of liquid metal than any recognizable machine. It was the remnant of a scout ship that had crashed during an undetected planetary survey, discovered by a geological research team. Dr. Hayes, Ramirez called out, "Preliminary scans show the Vraxians have taken the bait. They're positioning exactly where we predicted." General Diana Blackwood entered the command center, her cybernetic eye scanning the room with mechanical precision. A veteran of 3 interplanetary conflicts, she represented the bridge between humanity's military past and its potential future. Her artificial eye, a marvel of human engineering, could process visual information at speeds that made the most advanced alien scanning technologies look primitive. "The Jupiter deployment is a calculated risk," she said, studying the holographic representation of the solar system. Tiny markers represented Earth's hidden fleet, each one a carefully concealed weapon of last resort. "Rodriguez is preparing the Jupiter-class prototype for final deployment." Meanwhile, in the Kuiper Belt, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez ran final system checks on the U.S. Thermopila's prototype drive system. The ship looked nothing like traditional spacecraft. Its hull was a complex lattice of adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds. Designed to exploit the extreme gravitational conditions around gas giants, the ship represented humanity's most advanced piece of military technology. Rodriguez remembered the stories his grandfather told him, tales of the first encounters, the secret research, the years of preparation hidden from public view. Humanity had learned its most important lesson from those early alien encounters. Never appear too strong. Never show your full hand. Back in Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Hayes pulled up a holographic reconstruction of the first alien artifact. What looked like random crystalline structures to the untrained eye was actually a sophisticated computational matrix that had taken her team decades to partially understand. "The Vraxians believe they're choosing our battlefield," she muttered, zooming into microscopic details of the artifact. "They have no idea we've been planning this moment since the first piece of alien technology touched human hands." A secure communication line blinked to life. Colonel Jack Morrison's face appeared, his expression a mix of calculated determination and something deeper, a fundamental human trait that no alien species had ever fully comprehended. "Hope. Status report," he said simply. General Blackwood stepped forward. "Project Prometheus is green. Rodriguez is in position. The Jupiter platforms are powered and waiting. We're ready to show them what humanity can do when pushed into a corner." The communication encrypted itself automatically, the quantum entanglement protocols making it impossible to intercept or decode. Another gift from decades of studying alien technologies, not just reverse engineering them, but understanding and improving upon their fundamental principles. Outside the mountain complex, the world continued its daily routine. Cities hummed with life, unaware that humanity's greatest battle was about to be fought. News cycles ran their standard programming. Sports events continued. People went about their lives. They had no idea that everything was about to change. The great red spot of Jupiter, churned with millennia-old storms, its massive atmospheric patterns creating a backdrop of swirling crimson and amber that dwarfed any human or alien concept of scale. Captain Emily Ghost Walker stood on the bridge of the U.S. Thermopylae, her augmented neural interface allowing her to perceive the battlefield in dimensions far beyond traditional visual perception. Quantum alignment at 92%, her eye co-pilot, ARA, Advanced Responsive Intelligence Assistant, reported. The voice was deliberately modulated to sound human. A psychological trick developed after early alien contact studies revealed that most spacefaring species responded more predictably to seemingly organic communication. The Vraxian fleet spread out in what they believed was a perfect tactical formation, a three-dimensional geometric pattern that had decimated countless civilizations across the galaxy. Their ships looked like obsidian fragments suspended against the backdrop of Jupiter's turbulent atmosphere, each vessel equipped with technology that had made resistance seem futile for hundreds of other species. They were wrong. "Initiate quantum drift," Walker commanded, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. The U.S. thermopila began to change. Its hull, a complex lattice of adaptive metamaterials, started to shimmer and shift. What looked like a single vessel suddenly became something else entirely. Quantum entanglement technology, developed in secret laboratories buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, allowed the ship to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. To the Vraxian sensors, the human fleet appeared to be doing the impossible. One moment, a ship would be detected in one location. The next, it would simultaneously exist in 3 different positions, its energy signature defying every known law of physics. The Vraxian admiral's tactical display erupted with conflicting data, impossible movement vectors, quantum signatures that seemed to break fundamental rules of spacetime. "Impossible," the Vraxian tactical officer muttered, his multifaceted crystalline eyes processing information at speeds that would make human supercomputers look like primitive calculators. "No species can manipulate quantum states with this level of precision." Dr. Amanda Hayes, watching from the command center in Cheyenne Mountain, allowed herself a slight smile. The Vraxians had no idea that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't advanced technology. It was the ability to think beyond technological limitations. Each of Walker's ships employed a technology the Vraxians had deemed theoretically impossible. Quantum drift allowed them to exist in multiple potential states, making traditional targeting systems useless. Worse, from the Vraxian perspective, the human ships could choose which quantum state to collapse into, effectively allowing them to decide their own existence moment by moment. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez led the second wave, his squadron emerging from Jupiter's electromagnetic interference like phantoms. The Vraxian fleet's first wave of attack missiles found nothing but quantum ghosts, ships that existed and did not exist simultaneously. "ORIA, prepare quantum resonance protocol," Walker commanded. The A's response was instantaneous. Quantum resonance matrix charged, targeting Vraxian primary command ships. On the massive view screen, Jupiter's storms seemed to react, massive electromagnetic currents aligning in patterns that looked almost intentional. The planet itself seemed to be responding to the conflict, its ancient atmospheric patterns creating a backdrop of swirling chaos that mirrored the technological battle unfolding. The Vraxian admiral realized, with a growing sense of existential dread, that they were no longer conducting a military invasion. They had walked into something far more profound, a demonstration of capabilities that challenged everything they understood about technological development. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement, and they were just getting started. The first Vraxian attack wave crashed against humanity's quantum-shifted defense like liquid metal against a storm. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez watched the initial assault with a predator's calm, his neural interface allowing him to perceive the battlefield as a living, breathing organism. "Gravitational asymmetry in Sector 3, Araya reported." The A's voice carried a subtle undertone of excitement, a programmed response designed to keep human operators psychologically engaged during high-stress situations. Rodriguez's squadron of Jupiter-class destroyers began a maneuver that would become legendary in military academies across the galaxy. Using Jupiter's immense gravitational field as both shield and weapon, the human ships performed what would later be called the Terran Spiral, a combat formation that transformed the gas giant's massive gravity well into a dynamic battlefield. The Vraxian missiles, each a marvel of faster-than-light targeting technology, suddenly found themselves caught in competing gravitational vectors. Some were slingshot away from their targets, others collapsed into themselves, and a select few became projectiles redirected by human calculations that seemed to predict the future. "They're using the planet as a weapon," the Vraxian tactical officer stammered, his crystalline communication nodes flickering with confusion. The concept was so fundamentally alien to their strategic doctrine that it took several milliseconds for the information to process. Captain Emily Ghost, Walker's flagship, positioned at the precise mathematical point where Jupiter's electromagnetic fields converged, began its most audacious move. The ship's adaptive hull started to resonate with the planet's magnetic currents, essentially becoming an extension of the gas giant itself. Quantum resonance at 98%, ARIA reported. We are now functionally indistinguishable from Jupiter's electromagnetic system. Back in Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Amanda Hayes watched the tactical display with a mixture of scientific fascination and military precision. Every movement was the result of decades of research, every seemingly impossible maneuver a carefully calculated risk. They're learning, she muttered to General Diana Blackwood. Watch how the Vraxians try to adapt. Indeed, the alien fleet was attempting to recalibrate. Their ships began to shift formation, trying to create a multi-dimensional defensive matrix that had crushed countless civilizations before. But humanity had studied those historical conquests. Every defeated species had become a lesson, every technological remnant a piece of a larger puzzle. Rodriguez's voice cut through the communication channel, initiating gravitational cascade. The human ships began to move in a pattern that looked like a complex dance. Each vessel adjusted its quantum state, its gravitational signature, its electromagnetic emissions, creating a coordinated field of controlled chaos that the Vraxian targeting systems simply could not comprehend. Missiles that should have found their marks instead found themselves redirected, consumed by Jupiter's massive atmospheric storms, or simply ceasing to exist in any measurable state. The Vraxian admiral watched in growing horror as his perfectly calculated invasion began to disintegrate. "This is impossible," he transmitted to his fleet. But even as the words left his communication matrix, he knew they were a lie. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. Every crashed scout ship, every fragment of alien technology, every theoretical physics experiment had been leading to this moment. The invasion wasn't just being repelled, it was being systematically dismantled by a species that had transformed limitation into innovation. Jupiter's storms seemed to rage with an almost sentient intensity, massive electromagnetic currents dancing around the human ships like protective spirits. The gas giant had become more than a battlefield. It was a weapon, a shield, a living participant in humanity's greatest confrontation. And they were just beginning to show what they could do. The quantum communication array in Cheyenne Mountain hummed with an energy that seemed to defy conventional physics. Dr. Amanda Hayes stood before a holographic display that was less a piece of technology and more a living, breathing map of humanity's greatest secret, the true extent of Project Prometheus. "Activate tertiary data cascade," she commanded, her fingers tracing complex patterns across the quantum interface. Behind her, a wall of screens flickered to life, revealing fragments of alien technology recovered over decades. Each piece told a story. A crashed scout ship in the Nevada desert, a fragment discovered during deep-sea exploration, a quantum signature detected during a routine satellite sweep. What looked like random technological artifacts to the untrained eye was actually the blueprint of humanity's greatest achievement. Lieutenant Carlos Ramirez pulled up the original artifact, the first piece of alien technology discovered in 2037. Its crystalline structure seemed to pulse with an inner light, a technological DNA that humanity had spent decades deciphering. The Vraxians thought we were simply reverse engineering their technology, Dr. Hayes explained to General Blackwood. What they never understood was that we were rewriting the fundamental rules of technological interaction. On the tactical display, the battle around Jupiter continued to unfold in ways the Vraxian fleet couldn't comprehend. The human ships weren't just avoiding attacks, they were predicting and manipulating them at a quantum level. Each piece of recovered alien technology had been more than a study in advanced engineering. It was a lesson in thinking beyond technological limitations. The railgun systems developed by Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez were a perfect example. Weapons so primitive, by alien standards, that they fell completely outside the Vraxian defensive matrices. Quantum shield harmonics are at 92% efficiency, AI reported from the U.S. Thermopylae. The AI had become more than just a computer system. It was a collaborative intelligence that understood human creativity in ways no alien algorithm could comprehend. Captain Emily Ghost Walker's voice cut through the communication channel. "We're seeing complete breakdown of Vraxian targeting systems. They can't process our adaptive quantum signatures." The truth was both simple and revolutionary. Humanity hadn't just studied alien technology. They had learned to think like the technology itself. Each recovered artifact was a Rosetta Stone of potential. A key to understanding that technology was less about the hardware and more about the fundamental approach to problem-solving. General Blackwood watched the tactical display, her cybernetic eye parsing information at speeds that would make most supercomputers look like abacuses. "They're running diagnostic loops," she observed. "Our quantum signatures are forcing their combat systems into recursive error states." Dr. Hayes allowed herself a rare smile. "We're not just fighting them. We're teaching them a fundamental lesson about technological evolution." The railguns developed by Rodriguez were a perfect example of human innovation. Traditional energy weapons relied on complex power systems and advanced targeting. These railguns were beautifully simple, using fundamental physics in ways the Vraxians had never considered. Kinetic energy, delivered with mathematical precision, became a weapon that completely bypassed the most advanced shield technologies. Initiating quantum resonance protocol, Araya announced. The human ships around Jupiter began to vibrate at frequencies that seemed to make them partially transparent. Vraxian missiles passed through them, finding nothing solid to impact. It was more than camouflage. It was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to exist in a physical space. "They're learning that technology is not about complexity," Dr. Hayes said softly. "It's about understanding. And no one understands adaptation better than humans." The battle was no longer just a conflict. It had become a demonstration, a lesson in technological philosophy that would reshape how the galaxy understood human potential. The quantum defense platforms, hidden within Jupiter's atmospheric storms, began to emerge like phantoms materializing from the planet's swirling crimson depths. General Diana Blackwood watched the tactical display with a predator's intensity, her cybernetic eye tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. "Operation Zeus is engaging," she announced, her voice cutting through the tension in the Cheyenne Mountain Command Center. Each defense platform was a marvel of human engineering that defied conventional understanding of space warfare. Developed in secret laboratories buried beneath mountain ranges and oceanic research stations, these platforms used Jupiter's intense electromagnetic fields as both camouflage and weapon delivery system. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication channel. "Platforms are aligning. Vraxian fleet has no idea what's coming." The Vraxian admiral's tactical display erupted in a cascade of conflicting information. What had seemed like a simple invasion was transforming into a nightmare of quantum uncertainty. Defense platforms materialized from the planet's storms, riding massive electromagnetic currents like living extensions of Jupiter itself. Dr. Amanda Hayes leaned forward, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that mapped quantum entanglement signatures. "Watch how they respond to systemic uncertainty," she muttered to the team around her. The platforms weren't just weapons. They were a complex neural network that could think, adapt, and respond faster than any centralized command structure. Each one was essentially a distributed intelligence that could make tactical decisions in microseconds, drawing power directly from Jupiter's massive electromagnetic fields. Quantum resonance at 97%, Araya reported from the U.S. Thermopylae. Platforms are now functionally indistinguishable from Jupiter's natural electromagnetic systems. Colonel Jack Morrison's voice cut through the communication channel. "This is about more than winning a battle. This is about showing them what humanity truly is." The Vraxian fleet found itself caught in a trap of its own making. The battlefield they had chosen, Jupiter's orbit, had been transformed into a living weapon. Massive electromagnetic pulses erupted from the planet's storms, creating interference patterns that completely disrupted alien targeting systems. Platforms that looked like they were constructed from living light began to target specific vulnerabilities in Vraxian ship designs. These weren't random attacks, but precisely calculated strikes that exploited technological weaknesses discovered through decades of careful study. They're systematically dismantling our defensive matrices, the Vraxian tactical officer reported, his multifaceted crystalline eyes flickering with a combination of technological confusion and growing respect. Captain Emily Ghost Walker's squadron began the most audacious maneuver of the battle. Using Jupiter's gravitational field, her ships performed a series of quantum shifts that made them simultaneously present and absent, turning the planet's massive gravity well into a dynamic battlefield that defied conventional understanding. Back in the command center, Dr. Hayes pulled up a holographic reconstruction of the first alien artifact, recovered in 2037. "Every piece of technology tells a story," she explained to the team around her. "We've been reading their story for decades, while they thought we were just collecting souvenirs." The defense platforms began to move in patterns that looked like a complex, living dance. They weren't just weapons. They were a demonstration of humanity's fundamental approach to problem solving. Each platform could communicate, adapt, and respond faster than any centralized command structure. "Vraxian fleet is entering complete systemic shock," Araya reported. The AI's voice carried a subtle undertone of scientific fascination. Colonel Morrison watched the tactical display, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. The invasion wasn't just being repelled, it was being systematically dismantled by a species that had transformed limitation into the ultimate form of innovation. Jupiter's storms raged around the human platforms, massive electromagnetic currents dancing like protective spirits. The gas giant had become more than a battlefield. It was a weapon, a shield, a living participant in humanity's greatest confrontation. And they were just getting started. The quantum communication channel crackled with an intensity that seemed to transcend normal communication protocols. The Vraxian admiral, his crystalline exoskeleton now flickering with what could only be described as technological exhaustion, demanded answers. "Explain," he transmitted, the word less a question and more a fundamental challenge to everything the Vraxian collective understood about technological superiority. The response came not from a single source, but from a collective transmission that originated from multiple points simultaneously. Colonel Jack Morrison, Dr. Amanda Hayes, General Diana Blackwood, Captain Emily Walker, and Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez appeared as quantum-entangled holographic projections, each existing in multiple states, their images shifting and merging in ways that defied traditional understanding. "You asked us to choose the battlefield," Morrison began, his voice carrying the weight of generations of human preparation. Dr. Hayes continued, her holographic form overlapping with Morrison's. "We've been studying your technology since the first crash in 2037. General Blackwood's cybernetic eye pulsed with data streams that showed decades of collected intelligence. Every defeated civilization became our lesson." The Vraxian admiral watched in growing horror as the human representatives demonstrated something far more terrifying than military might, a fundamental approach to understanding that transcended technological limitations. "You believed technological superiority was about complexity," Captain Walker explained. Her holographic form seemed to dance with the electromagnetic currents still raging around Jupiter. "We understood it was about adaptive thinking." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez pulled up a holographic timeline that mapped every piece of alien technology humanity had encountered. What looked like random artifacts to the Vraxian perspective was actually a carefully constructed narrative of technological evolution. Each fragment told a story, Rodriguez said, not just of technology, but of the thinking behind that technology. The quantum display exploded with information, recovered artifacts, scientific analyses, strategic interpretations that showed how humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. It wasn't just about reverse engineering alien technology. It was about understanding the fundamental philosophy of technological development. Dr. Hayes's hologram zoomed into the molecular structure of the first recovered alien artifact. "You saw this as a weapon," she explained. "We saw it as a language. Every piece of technology is a form of communication, and we've been learning to speak your language for decades." The Vraxian tactical systems began to break down. Their computational matrices, designed to process information with inhuman speed and precision, found themselves caught in recursive loops of logical impossibility. "We didn't just prepare to fight," General Blackwood said, her cybernetic eye displaying tactical simulations that showed hundreds of potential invasion scenarios. "We prepared to understand." Colonel Morrison's final statement cut through the communication channels like a knife. "You chose to invade. We chose to learn." The human team demonstrated something the Vraxians had never encountered, a form of collective intelligence that wasn't based on technological integration, but on collaborative thinking. Each of them represented a different approach to problem solving: scientific innovation, military strategy, technological adaptation, tactical brilliance, and leadership. Araya, the AI system that had been a silent participant throughout the conflict, began to compile a comprehensive report. It wasn't just a battle report. It was a philosophical treatise on the nature of technological evolution. The Vraxian fleet, once a symbol of galactic conquest, now looked like a collection of confused computational systems trying to understand a form of intelligence that existed beyond their most advanced algorithms. Jupiter's massive storms continued to rage, as if the planet itself was a witness to a confrontation that would redefine how intelligent species understood technological potential. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They had demonstrated a fundamental truth about intelligence, adaptation, and the power of collaborative thinking. The first Vraxian diplomatic shuttle arrived exactly 72 hours after the battle, its approach carefully choreographed to demonstrate both humility and continued technological sophistication. It landed at the United Nations complex in Geneva, a deliberate choice that symbolized humanity's commitment to collective decision-making. Colonel Jack Morrison stood with Dr. Amanda Hayes and General Diana Blackwood, representing humanity's complex approach to first contact. The diplomatic reception area had been carefully prepared, a neutral space that demonstrated both openness and strategic preparedness. "They're studying us even now," Dr. Hayes muttered, her quantum communicator analyzing every electromagnetic emission from the approaching alien vessel. The Vraxian delegation emerged not as conquerors, but as something entirely unexpected: students. Their crystalline exoskeletons shifted with what could only be described as a form of technological curiosity. The lead diplomat, a being whose designation translated roughly to seeker of understanding, carried itself with a posture that suggested complete recalibration of its previous worldview. "Your species," the Vraxian diplomat transmitted, "has fundamentally challenged our understanding of technological development." Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez, standing nearby, allowed himself a slight smile. The diplomatic team had spent months preparing for this moment, understanding that the battle was merely the first stage of a much more complex interaction. General Blackwood's cybernetic eye scanned multiple communication channels simultaneously. "We're not interested in conquest," she responded. "We're interested in understanding." The first joint initiative emerged almost immediately. The Vraxians proposed a comprehensive technology exchange program that was less about sharing specific technologies and more about sharing methodological approaches to problem solving. Humanity had demonstrated something far more valuable than advanced weapons, a form of adaptive intelligence that transcended traditional technological paradigms. At the World Series game that followed, a deliberate choice to show normalcy in the face of extraordinary events, the first Vraxian observers sat in the stands. They weren't there as conquered beings, but as participants in a fundamental cultural exchange. Dr. Hayes found herself explaining baseball to the alien delegates. "It's not just a game," she said. "It's a complex system of strategy, individual skill, and collective effort." The Vraxians began to understand. The game became a metaphor for humanity's approach to technological and cultural development. Adaptive, collaborative, constantly evolving. Colonel Morrison met with the Vraxian admiral in a private communication session. The conversation wasn't about the battle, but about the fundamental nature of intelligence and adaptation. "You saw technology as a weapon," Morrison explained. "We see it as a language of potential." The galactic communication networks began to buzz with reports of the unprecedented encounter. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had redefined the entire concept of first contact. Other spacefaring civilizations watched with a mixture of fascination and growing respect. The technology exchange program revealed something far more profound. Project Prometheus was more than a military initiative. It was a comprehensive approach to understanding technological and cultural development. Every piece of alien technology recovered over decades wasn't just studied, it was understood as a form of communication. "We're not just sharing technology," Dr. Hayes explained during a global broadcast. "We're sharing a way of thinking." The Vraxian diplomatic mission established a permanent research base in the Rocky Mountains, near the hidden laboratories where Project Prometheus had been developed. It was less an embassy and more a collaborative research center, a physical manifestation of the new relationship between species. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez watched the first joint research team assemble. Humans and Vraxians worked side by side, their different approaches to problem-solving, creating a form of collaborative intelligence that was greater than the sum of its parts. The World Series continued. The diplomatic discussions continued. And humanity had transformed a potential extinction event into the most significant cultural exchange in galactic history. They had chosen their response, and the galaxy would never be the same.